So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the world of economics. We're going to break down the fundamental tools economists use to make sense of our pretty complex world, so you can see it a little more through their eyes. I mean, you've heard this a million times, right? You turn on the news and you've got one economist saying we have to raise interest rates, while another one is insisting, no, we have to lower them. It really feels like for every expert opinion, there's an equal and opposite expert opinion. So what gives?
Well, a huge part of the answer is this. See, unlike physics, which has these nice, neat laws of motion, economics is a social science. It's the study of people, of us, how we make choices, how we react to things, how we deal with each other. And let's be honest, people are complicated. So how on earth do you study something so messy and unpredictable? Well, economists have a core strategy. They don't even try to capture everything all at once. Instead, they simplify. They build models which are kind of like maps that help guide them through the overwhelming complexity of the real world. You know, this quote really gets to the very heart of what an economic model is all about. A model isn't supposed to be some perfect one-to-one replica of reality. In fact, if it were, it'd be totally useless. Just way too much detail, too much noise. The whole point of a model is to be a simplification, to intentionally leave stuff out to make a specific problem crystal clear. Now, to make these simple maps actually work, economists use this fundamental assumption, a little bit of Latin called ceteris paribus. It just means all other things being equal. So, if they want to figure out how, say, a drop in the price of coffee affects how much we buy, they have to assume just for that moment that nothing else is changing. Not your income, not the price of tea, nothing. It's how they isolate one thing at a time. And it turns out this whole method of simplification, it allows economists to look at the world in two totally different ways. They can create two completely distinct kinds of maps that serve two very different purposes. And honestly, this is where a lot of the confusion about economics really comes from.
Okay, let's start with the first kind of map. This one explores the world of what is. This is the realm of what economists call positive statements. And it is all about describing reality as objectively as you possibly can. So what's the key here? It all comes down to one thing: testability. A positive statement is any claim where you can ask, could I, at least in theory, go find some evidence to prove this right or wrong? The actual answer doesn't matter, just the fact that the claim can be tested. So think of these like the building blocks of a scientific claim, right? They're objective, they're based on facts, and, this is the most important part, they describe the world in a way that we can test with data. Doesn't matter if we're talking about the past, the present, or even a prediction about the future. Okay, take a look at this statement. This is a perfect example of a positive claim. And why is that? Because it's a testable hypothesis. We can literally go out, collect the data on incomes and car sales, and see if the evidence backs it up. It's a claim about how the world works that we can actually verify. Okay, so that's the world of facts. But economists also spend a lot of time exploring a second world, the world of what ought to be. And this is the home of what we call normative statements. Now, a normative statement is a whole different beast. It's an opinion. It's a statement about what someone believes should happen. And because it's rooted in personal values and ethics, you can't just go out and prove it true or false with a spreadsheet. The traits here are pretty much the mirror image of what we just saw.
These statements are subjective. They're opinions. You can't test them with data. And the real giveaway is often the language itself. Keep an ear out for words like should or ought. They're like a big flashing sign that you've just entered the world of value judgments.
Right. Look at this. The government should increase the state pension. Two people could look at the exact same economic data about poverty, about government budgets, everything, and come to completely different conclusions here. Why? Because their underlying values about fairness and the role of government are different. It's a value judgment, plain and simple. Now, look at these two statements side by side. This is where it all just clicks into place. On the left, you've got a positive statement. It's a testable hypothesis about how people might behave. We could study it. But on the right, you have a normative statement. It's a policy recommendation based on a belief. One is a claim about how the world is. The other is a claim about how we want the world to be. Big difference. All right, that's enough theory for now. Let's put this into practice with a real-world situation. We're going to take a quick look at a description of the public healthcare system in India and see if you can spot the difference between the facts and the opinions. So as this image suggests, India's public healthcare system serves a huge population, and because of that, it faces some pretty enormous challenges. The debate over how to fix it is constant, and believe me, it is full of both positive and normative claims. Okay, so let's examine a specific claim that was made in an analysis of the healthcare system. All right, put on your economist hat. What do you think? Is that a positive statement, a testable fact, or is it a normative statement, an opinion? If you set positive, you are absolutely right. As shocking as that number might sound, it is a claim that can be verified. You could, in theory, go to the hospitals, check their records, and confirm or deny the length of that waiting list. It's a statement about what is. Okay, now let's look at another sentence from that very same analysis. This one has a totally different feel to it, doesn't it? Okay, one last time. What are we looking at here? Fact or opinion? Positive or normative? And this one is normative. And the key that just gives it all away is that one little word, deserve. What kind of attention does a person deserve? I mean, who gets to decide that? That is not a question data can answer. It's a question of ethics, of values. It is a judgment call about what ought to be. So much of the disagreement we see every single day happens because people blur these lines, right? They present their normative wishes as if they're objective, positive facts. But now you have the tool to see the difference. The next time you hear someone make an economic claim, you can ask the single most important question. Are they telling me a fact about the world, or are they just telling me their wish for it?
Scan the QR code, do the test, and come back in 5 minutes.
All right, let's talk about the single biggest problem in all of economics. And here's the thing, it's a problem you're dealing with right now, this very second, even if you don't realize it. So let me ask you something. What did you just give up to watch this? Seriously, think about it. You're spending a few minutes here with me. What else could you be doing? Maybe grabbing a coffee, finishing up some work, catching a quick nap, whatever it is, just hold that thought. Because that simple choice you just made, it's the key to, well, pretty much everything. Yeah, that little decision, choosing this over something else, it actually points to this central struggle that runs our entire world. I'm not kidding. It affects everything from your own bank account all the way up to global politics. And here's what that conflict looks like. On one hand, you've got us humans. Our wants are infinite, right? We always want a better car, a bigger house, more amazing vacations, more free time. The list just goes on and on. It never stops. But on the other hand, the stuff we need to get those things, money, time, energy, even the raw materials from the earth, that stuff is limited. There's only so much to go around. And this is the game we play every single day, right? We're constantly trying to use our limited stuff to get our unlimited wants. It could be something huge, like saving up for that dream family vacation, or something tiny, like just buying a cup of coffee. It's the same principle. And this constant tug of war, this fundamental problem, it has a name. That name is scarcity. And listen, this is super important. Scarcity is not the same thing as being poor. It affects everyone. Billionaires, backpackers, you, me, everyone. It's just the basic, unchangeable rule of the world. There isn't enough of everything for everyone to have it all for free. And because of that one single fact, we have to choose. Okay, so scarcity forces us to choose. Big deal, right? Well, yeah, it is a huge deal because every single choice you make, every single one, has a kind of shadow, a hidden cost. And it's not about the price tag. It's about what you didn't choose. It's about the door you closed. Economists call this hidden cost opportunity cost. And here's the key thing to get. It's not the cost of all the things you didn't do. No, it's the value of the next best thing you gave up. So by choosing A, you've automatically given up the chance to have B. That's the real cost. Let's make this real with a big one, deciding to go to university. Okay, so you choose to spend, say, 3 years studying. Now, the obvious costs, the direct costs, are things like tuition fees, your rent, right? But the opportunity cost, well, that's the salary you could have been earning from a full-time job during those 3 years. That's a huge, real cost of your degree that doesn't show up on any bill. But, and this is a big but, there's a reason people make this trade-off. The data shows that over lifetime, a university graduate can earn way more. We're talking an average of over £200,000 more. So think about that. You're sacrificing money now for the chance to make a whole lot more money later. That is a giant real-world decision based entirely on opportunity cost. Okay, so that's us as individuals. We get it. But what about a whole society? How does an entire country try to solve this problem of scarcity and produce all the stuff we want and need? Well, it turns out that every economy, whether it's a tiny village or a global superpower, basically has a recipe. It uses 4 essential ingredients to cook up everything we consume, from our smartphones to our sandwiches. And these are called the factors of production. First up, you've got land.
And this isn't just a patch of dirt. It means all natural resources, oil, minerals, forests, water, the whole shebang. Then you need labor. That's pretty simple. It's the people, the human effort doing the work. Third is capital. Now, this isn't just money. In economics, capital means the man-made stuff that helps you make other stuff. Think machines, tools, factories. And finally, there's the secret sauce, enterprise. This is the human creativity, the person who takes a risk and brings the other three factors together to actually create something of value. Literally every single thing you buy is just some combination of those four.
All right, let's zoom the camera all the way out. We've talked about you, we've talked about the ingredients of an economy, but this core problem, scarcity and opportunity cost, it doesn't just shape your shopping habits. It shapes nations. It shapes our entire world. Think about it. A government faces the exact same problem you do, just on a mind-boggling scale. They have a limited pot of money, your tax money, right? And an endless list of things people want. Better healthcare, better schools, better roads. They can't do it all. They are forced to choose. And healthcare is the perfect and often painful example. Every country has a finite budget for health, so they have to make these incredibly tough calls. Do we fund this expensive new cancer drug, or do we use that money to build a new children's hospital? Every single one of those decisions carries a massive, massive opportunity cost. And the trade-offs at this level are just huge. I mean, funding a new life-saving drug might mean there's less money for new schools. Ramping up the defense budget, as we often see, could mean there's less funding for something like environmental protection. The brutal truth is, every single dollar, every pound, every euro spent on one public service is a dollar that cannot be spent somewhere else. That is opportunity cost playing out on the national stage, and it affects millions of lives.
You know, once you really get this, it's like you've been given a new pair of glasses to see the world. Suddenly, every news headline about the government's budget, every big corporate decision, even your own daily choices, you see the hidden machinery underneath. You see it's all about scarcity, trade-offs, and what's being given up.
So we've come full circle, all the way from your simple choice to watch this to the massive economic choices that shape our entire planet. It's all driven by that same simple problem. You can't have it all. So my question to you is this. Now that you can see the hidden cost, the opportunity cost behind every choice, what are you going to choose differently?
Scan the QR code, do the test, and come back in 5 minutes.
Today, we're going to dive into one of the most fundamental ideas in all of economics. It's a concept that really gets to the heart of why you, me, companies, and even entire countries can never quite have it all. It's all about the tough choices we have to make every single day, and we're going to look at a cool way to visualize the very limits of what's even possible. I mean, it's the age-old problem, right? Whether you're talking about time, money, or resources, it just feels like there's never enough to go around. But here's the thing. This isn't some personal failing. It's the core problem that the entire field of economics is built on. We have unlimited wants, but we live in a world with very limited resources. So let's make this super simple. Imagine you've got 500 pounds to give to charity. Awesome. But you've got two causes you really care about, and you can't fully fund both. So what do? Split the money? Go all in on one? That decision right there, how you allocate that scarce resource, that's a true economic choice. And it's exactly the kind of puzzle we're tackling today. To really wrap our heads around these limits, economists came up with this really powerful visual tool. It's a way to actually see the choices we have, and more importantly, the consequences that come along with them. It's called the Production Possibility Frontier, or PPF for short. The best way to think of it is like a map of an economy's maximum potential. It shows us every possible combination of two different goods that can be produced when everything, every resource, every bit of technology is running at full steam. So this curve you're looking at, that's the frontier. Any point right on that line represents an economy that's running at peak performance. It's producing a specific mix of, in this case, manufactured goods and non-manufactured goods. If you choose a point at the top of the curve, you get more non-manufactured goods. If you choose a point on the right, you get more manufactured ones. Every single spot on that line is a totally efficient but totally different choice. You can see this frontier basically creates three zones. If you're operating anywhere on the curve, like at points A, B, or C, your economy is humming along perfectly. Nothing's being wasted. But what about point D, inside the curve? Well, that means the economy is slacking. Think high unemployment or factories sitting idle. And point E, out there in space, that's the dream. It's a level of production that's just flat out impossible with the resources and tech we have today. Okay, so we know that to be efficient, we've got to be somewhere on that curve. Simple enough. But here's the catch. Choosing any one of those points comes with a hidden price tag. And the answer to this is so important. To get more of any one thing, you absolutely must accept less of something else. You know the old saying, there's no such thing as a free lunch? Well, that's especially true in economics. Economists actually have a name for this price. It's called opportunity cost. It's simply the value of whatever you had to sacrifice. It's the road not taken. For that charity money, the opportunity cost of funding one cause is all the good you couldn't do for the other one. So how does this whole opportunity cost thing look on the graph itself? Well, imagine an economy is just hanging out at point C, producing a nice mix of goods. But then it decides it really needs more manufactured products. Okay, fine. It can shift production over to point B. That's a totally valid choice. But what's the hidden cost? The numbers here tell the whole story. To gain 10 more units of manufactured goods by moving from C to B, this economy has to give up 20 units of non-manufactured goods. That right there, that's the opportunity cost. That gain wasn't free. It was paid for with the other stuff it can no longer make. So, this frontier defines an economy's limits at a specific moment. But are those limits set in stone? Not at all. In fact, the frontier itself can move. This is what every single country on Earth wants to see: economic growth. And on this graph, it's shown as the entire PPF curve shifting outwards and to the right. This can happen because of new technology, maybe finding more resources, or having a more educated workforce. And suddenly, points that were impossible before, like our old friend point E, are now totally within reach. The entire country just got richer.
And a really powerful real-world example of this is China. Starting back in the late 1970s, its economy just exploded. It grew at this astounding average of nearly 10% a year for decades. That represents a massive continuous outward shift of its whole production possibility frontier. But tragically, the frontier can also shift inwards. In Syria, for instance, years of civil war destroyed roads, factories, and displaced millions of workers. All that devastation caused the country's entire ability to produce to just collapse. A painful, devastating inward shift of its PPF. And all of this leads us to the final, and maybe the most important, choice an economy has to make. It's a decision that really determines whether that frontier is going to grow or just stay put. So here, the choice isn't between two different products like cars and butter. It's between two types of goods. You have consumer goods, things like food and clothes, stuff we enjoy right now. And then you have capital goods, things like machinery and technology, which are investments that help us produce even more stuff down the road. And as you can see, we have two countries, A and B, making very different choices here. So country A is really focused on today. It's producing a ton of consumer goods, which is great for now. But country B is playing the long game. It's sacrificing some of that present-day enjoyment to invest heavily in capital goods. And the results? Well, as time goes on, country B's investment pays off, big time. Its PPF shifts out much, much further than country A's, which leads to way more wealth in the future. And this really brings us to the core lesson, which is summed up perfectly here. The decision a country makes between consuming now and investing for the future will determine how wealthy it is years later. That trade-off between the present and the future is probably the ultimate opportunity cost for any nation. So, do we consume more today, or do we invest more for tomorrow? You know, this isn't just a question for economists and governments. It's a choice we all make in our own lives. The production possibility frontier shows us that, for a country, investing in the future creates more possibilities for everyone. Which kind of leads to one final question for you. Are the choices you're making today expanding your possibilities for tomorrow?
Scan the QR code, do the test, and come back in 5 minutes.
Welcome to the Explainer. You've got it in your pocket, right? Or maybe in your bank account. But have you ever really stopped to think, what is money? Today, we're going to uncover the hidden story of how this one invention literally built the entire world around you.
All right, let's just jump right in with a problem. A really old one that plagued early societies. Picture this. You're a farmer, you've got a surplus of eggs, and man, you really need a haircut. How do you even make that trade happen? It sounds simple, but it's actually a massive puzzle.
So, for that simple trade to work, something kind of crazy has to happen. It's what economists call the double coincidence of wants. It's not just that the barber has to want your eggs, you also have to want his haircut right then and there. But what if the barber's craving bread today, not eggs? See, the whole deal falls apart. It's just super inefficient.
And this system, bartering, it really holds societies back. I mean, it keeps things small and simple because it's almost impossible to build, a complex supply chain or let people really specialize. If you're an amazing carpenter, you can't just spend your day making awesome chairs. Nope. You've got to spend half your time hunting for a farmer who happens to need a chair and has the exact food you want. It's a huge headache. So, to get past this roadblock, humanity needed a better tool. We needed an invention that could act as a go-between, something that everyone agreed had value. And that invention, of course, was money. And it completely changed the course of human history.
For something to actually be money, it's got to pass this little 4-part test. Think of it like a job interview. First up, is it a good medium of exchange? Basically, will everyone take it? Second, is it a good measure of value? Can we use it like a universal price tag? Third, and this is a big one, is it a good store of value? Meaning it's not going to rot like an egg. And finally, can it handle deferred payments? That's just a fancy way of saying you can use it for things like loans.
And that's the thing, right? Money isn't just one thing. It can be the physical cash in your pocket, or it can just be digital numbers in your banking app. What really matters is that we, as a society, all agree to accept it as payment. As long as it does its job, it works.
But that third function, that store of value, that one is absolutely critical. Because if the money you save today is going to be worth a whole lot less tomorrow, people just lose faith in the whole system. And when that faith is gone, the entire economy is at risk.
And that catastrophic failure has a name: hyperinflation. We're not talking about prices going up a little bit here and there. No, this is a total financial nightmare. It's when money loses its value so fast, it's practically worthless overnight. I mean, can you imagine your entire life savings turning to dust in the time it takes you to walk to the store? I mean, just look at this number. It's wild. Back in Germany in 1923, the inflation rate hit over 70 billion%. That meant prices were literally doubling every few days. People's savings wiped out. The money you had in the morning couldn't even buy you a loaf of bread by the afternoon. It's just mind-boggling.
And this really gets to the core of it all. Stable money is the foundation, the very bedrock of a functioning economy. When that foundation cracks, people stop saving, banks stop lending, and the whole idea of planning for the future, it just disappears. Okay, so let's say we have stable money. Great. Now we've got a new puzzle to solve, but it's a good one. In any economy, you've got two groups of people. You have savers, folks with extra cash, and you have borrowers, people with great ideas who need that cash to build a business or buy a house. The big question is, how do you get them together? And that's exactly where financial markets come in.
The best way to think about them is like the economy's circulatory system. They're the banks, the stock markets, the bond markets, all the things that pump money from the people who have it to the people who can use it to create something new. So what's their main job?
Well, it's all about channeling that money efficiently. They take someone's retirement savings and connect it to a brand new startup that needs funding. Or they take your bank deposit and turn it into a mortgage for a family buying their first home. They basically take dormant savings and turn it into active investment that fuels innovation and growth.
So, what's the big payoff? What do we get from this whole complicated system of money and markets? Well, it's the modern world all around us. It makes a level of specialization and global cooperation possible that would have been totally unimaginable back in the barter days. And a perfect example is probably the very device you're watching this on right now. Seriously, think about it. A single smartphone is a modern miracle of global collaboration. You've got copper mined in Chile, cobalt from the Congo, these incredible high-tech display panels made in South Korea, and cameras from Japan, all of it brought together and assembled in China. And none of those specialists had to barter with each other. They were all paid using a reliable system of money. Just let that sink in for a second. It's this beautiful, intricate dance. Millions of people across dozens of countries who will never meet are all coordinated perfectly by the financial system. Money acts as the universal language, allowing a specialist in one country to contribute their piece to a project thousands of miles away. This incredible system of human collaboration, built on the simple idea of money, is constantly evolving. It allowed us to move from trading eggs for haircuts to building pocket-sized supercomputers. And that leaves us with a final thought. If this is what we've built so far, what challenges and innovations will it connect us to build next?
Scan the QR code, do the test, and come back in 5 minutes.
Have you ever wondered why some countries seem so rich while others struggle? Or, why you can walk into a store and find a million types of cereal, but maybe things like healthcare feel out of reach? Well, the answer, or at least a big part of it, comes down to something called an economic system. So, let's get into it. Because honestly, understanding how these systems work is crucial to understanding pretty much everything about our world. But before we start talking about big global markets and governments, let's just bring this right down to a personal level. Think about your own household. Is it kind of like a planned economy? I mean, who decides what's for dinner or what you're going to buy at the store? Who does the chores? Is there an allowance? Every single family is like its own tiny economic system, constantly making choices about limited resources like time and money.
And that exact problem, that dilemma you face in your own home, well, it just scales up to cover the entire planet. It's all built on one basic, unavoidable truth that every single society has to face.
So, at its very core, an economic system is just the set of rules a society uses to answer a really simple question. Who gets what? It's the whole network, the people, the companies, the institutions, that decides how we dish out everything from food and phones to jobs and opportunities. Okay, so here's the absolute heart of the matter. We live in a world of what economists call scarcity. See, as people, our wants are pretty much infinite, right? We always want more, or something better, or something new. But the resources we need to make all that stuff, the raw materials, the people to do the work, even just time itself, are limited. And this fundamental clash, this mismatch, is the central problem that every economic system is trying to solve. So to really get a handle on how different societies deal with this whole scarcity thing, economists like to break it down into 3 key questions. And trust me, the way a country answers these questions pretty much defines its entire economic identity.
First up, what are we going to make with all our limited stuff? Should we focus on consumer goods, like pizzas, or should we build up our military with things like tanks? Second, how are we going to make it? Are we going to use a ton of human labor, or should we build factories full of automated machines? And then there's the big one, maybe the most important one. For whom are we making all this stuff? Does everybody get an equal slice of the economic pie, or do we have a system where, the winner takes all?
So for the last 100 years or so, two really big competing ideas have come about for how to answer those three questions. It's helpful to think of them as being on opposite ends of a long spectrum.
On one end, you've got the market. The basic idea here is, hey, let's let individuals decide. You have millions of people and businesses all making their own choices, buying and selling freely. The decisions are spread out. They're decentralized. But on the other end, you have planning. This idea says, nope, the government or some central authority should be in charge. They allocate resources using big plans and regulations. It's all centralized.
But here's the thing, and this is super important. In the real world, these pure 100% systems, they just don't exist. You won't find a country that is a total market economy or a total planned economy. Every single nation on Earth is what we call a mixed economy, blending parts of both. The real argument, the one that defines modern politics, is about where to find the right mix.
All right, so how does this actually look in practice? Let's take a look at the United States, because it's a fantastic example of an economy that leans very, very heavily toward the free market side of things.
So what are the upsides of this market-focused approach? Well, for starters, if you're a consumer, it means you have an absolutely huge choice of goods and services. For the country as a whole, it tends to lead to really high economic output. And for businesses, it provides a massive incentive to be innovative and super efficient, just so they can compete and survive. But of course, that's just one side of the story. This quote here really gets to the heart of the trade-offs that come with the American model. A system that creates really big winners, well, it often creates really big losers too.
And to get a sense of just how big that winner-takes-all effect is, just look at this number. Since 1980, while wages for a lot of people have stayed pretty flat, the top 5% of earners have seen their income shoot up by around 300%. That is a staggering shift in wealth. And you can really see that change right here in this chart. See on the left? That's the share of the nation's income back in 1980. Now watch what happens when we jump to 2010. That bar for the top 20% of earners gets a whole lot bigger, and the bar for the bottom 20% actually gets smaller. This is that for whom question playing out right before our eyes.
This kind of economic model leads to some pretty significant social challenges. For example, about 1/5 of all households in America are living on very low incomes. Compared to other wealthy nations, the government provides a more limited safety net for people who fall on hard times. And this last one might really surprise you. Despite being the richest country on Earth, the U.S. actually ranks 64th in life expectancy.
Which, of course, brings us right back to that huge, central question that every country has to answer for itself. It's not about choosing market or plan. It's about figuring out the perfect blend, the right mix for their society and for their values.
And we can see that mix in action right here. This graph is showing government spending as a percentage of the entire economy. It's a great way to measure how much of the plan is in the mix. Take a look at the line for the U.S. It's way down here. Now compare that to the average for the Eurozone, or especially to a country like Sweden. It's a clear choice. The U.S. relies less on government, while other places, like Sweden, have decided the government should play a much bigger role. So at the end of the day, it's all about this massive trade-off. On one side, you have systems that lean toward the market, like the U.S., which tend to be amazing at creating efficiency, innovation, and giving people lots of personal choice. On the other side, you have systems with more planning, which often do a better job of creating economic equality, providing social welfare, and ensuring stability for their citizens. There's no single right answer here, just different choices with different consequences.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Every country on earth is making this choice, defining its own mix based on its politics, its history, and its culture. So what do you think matters most? Is the top priority to maximize innovation and personal freedom? Or is it to guarantee more equality and security for everyone? The way we answer that question defines the kind of world we all live in.
That's the end of the lesson. Scan the QR code and do the test. See you in the next lesson. Subscribe, like, and follow us on YouTube for free online lessons.